Where does USC go from here? No, really. Where does USC go from here? After falling on its own sword once again against Utah. If you're brand new here, welcome on into the channel. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, Texas, and I talk college football every single day. I love NFL, I love MLB, NBA, everything, but I talk college football. And if you love this type of content, this channel is made for you. So hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and leave a comment on what you think of USC, what the overall outlook is for this program moving forward following a loss to Utah, and hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your families, tell your enemies about this team, because if we get to 1,000 subscribers by November 15th, I will shave my head live on air. We're just doing 3 live shows starting Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays this week, 30 to 45 minutes per day. You're not going to want to miss out. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button and let's talk college football. USC lost 34-32 to Utah, and it wasn't because they were not a good enough team to beat up on a Utes program that does not have its starting quarterback or hasn't had its former starting quarterback in Cam Rising throughout the year. It hasn't had its go-to tight end in Brayton Kuthi. It also hasn't had its other tight end in Dalton Kincaid because he left for the NFL. It's because they were outcoached by Kyle Whittingham. And I made this abundantly clear. You can go watch the video that I've just posted. Kyle Whittingham is the most underappreciated coach in the history of college football this era. Every year, you cannot count out the Utes. And that's just a given at this point. But it's so much more than that when you break it down. Kyle Whittingham has always implemented a standard. And the players that come into the program, freshmen who are recruited, transfers, anybody who's a graduate, they must meet Kyle Whittingham's standard to see the field. And that's what good coaches do. They do not change because if they have someone special. They make changes to the roster because the personnel allows them to, but they don't change their morals and their ethics and their laurels and standards because if somebody else walks in the building. And so far, I'm not sure you can say the same thing about USC underneath Lincoln Riley. Clay Helton was the liability that kept USC from ever dominating in the Pac-12 under his regime. Yes, the 1 year they did go to the Rose Bowl with Sam Darnold, that was phenomenal. But outside of that, can you ever name a year where it wasn't just a program that had 5-star talents based off of the name and branding of USC, eventually future first-rounders that underachieved? Because it happens. It always does. It always did. But Clay Helton was 17-5 in his first 2 seasons when he was at USC. As of this morning, Lincoln Riley is 17-5 through his first 2 seasons at USC. They can't get over the hump when it comes to playing Utah. They've now lost 3 consecutive times to the Utes with Caleb Williams, a Heisman Trophy quarterback, not only during the regular season, but also in the Pac-12 title game. And they find ways to self-implode against themselves. I have said on this show, now before when I was on just saying it on Sports Map Radio, I had said multiple times, do not buy into USC because that defense may be bad in games today against San Jose State, against Arizona State, against teams that are certainly nowhere near your standard. But you get a win. And of course you're going to get a win. Because when you have a quarterback who is built and has the capabilities of Caleb Williams, that alone gives you the edge. Doesn't matter the standard, doesn't matter the players, doesn't matter who you're facing off against or the score, you're going to win those games. But everybody, myself, other major college football analysts in the industry, all said, first half of the season, doesn't matter. Yeah, you expect them to go 6-0 during that stretch. You expect them to beat up on San Jose State, on Colorado, on Arizona. You expect those games. How do you respond when you play a Notre Dame team that has a physical front seven? How do you respond when you have to go against passing attacks like Washington and Oregon that also can play defense? Dan Lanning has basically turned Eugene into Athens 2.0 with his defense. The standard in the Pac-12 for defense at Oregon is basically SEC bred. And that's why you have seen them handle business, even though they did allow over 400 passing yards to Cam Ward. They are built that way. How do you do that against UCLA with Dante Moore and a wizard of play calling in Chip Kelly? Those are things that you had to prepare for. And what have we seen in the last 4 games? The last 4 games alone, USC's defense has allowed 28 points, 41 points, 41 points, 34 points. And I'm not including the Notre Dame game because several of those plays were pick sixes. They were defensive touchdowns. So you can't say they gave up over 30 points. But again, here we go. It's been a 30-plus point swing in 5 straight games. Lincoln Riley doesn't care about defense, and he hasn't for a while. Go back and look at this time when he was at Oklahoma. They won because offensively, they were sound and they were driven. And people want to give me flack all the time for saying that I believe Washington is the best team in the Pac-12 because of the passing attack. Yeah, well, they did enough defensively to get a win over Arizona State. And that's not me puffing out my own chest and believing right now, yes, I believe absolutely Washington deserves all the garneration to be the number 1 team. No, they don't. I moved them down in the rankings because of it this week. But when you have a passing attack like that, you can do damage if your defense gets a critical stop. Your defense couldn't do anything against Bryson Barnes, a guy who Kyle Whittingham said, yeah, they have a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback on their sidelines. We have a pig farmer, and we love our pig farmer. Okay, you should. The Trojans remind me right now a little bit of this year's San Diego Padres team. And I know what you're probably saying, how do baseball and football correlate with each other? Hang on. AJ Preller, for years, and he did this before, thought buying talent would be enough to construct a roster that can win championships. Not worry about internally setting a culture, a standard, an X factor, expectations, morals, ethics, quality things that actually matter to building a legitimate contending quality roster every year. No, AJ Preller just went out and spent money. He went big, and he's done it for a while. And what were the results? You finished about 500. You didn't make the playoffs, and you're watching as right now the Arizona Diamondbacks, a young team, up and coming, with a lot of homegrown talent from guys like Christian Walker to Corbin Carroll to Gabriel Montero, remain 2 games away from going to the World Series. You were expected to be a World Series favorite. You weren't even in the top 2 of your own division. That's how things went. Because you didn't build a team, you built players and put them in uniforms and said, figure out how to be a team. And that's what USC is doing right now. They went hard in the transfer portal underneath Alex Grinch and said, let's add a defensive player here. Let's get a defensive lineman here. Let's get a defensive back here. And they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out because that's what we do. We can get 5 stars and former super standouts and all of these players, and they'll find a way to build that chemistry immediately. And they didn't. They didn't. And that's where USC remains. USC is in very much trouble and jeopardy of finishing the year 6-6. I don't think that they will. You look at their schedule, they do have a winnable game this weekend against Cal. Probably they're going to allow 28 points, maybe more, but they should win that game. So they should finish around, I would say, probably with 7 wins. They should do that. But they're 6-2, and you still have to play Washington, and you still have to play Oregon, and you still have to play UCLA. And all 3 of those teams right now are better than USC, top to bottom. And what's the reasoning behind it? Culture, chemistry, continuity. USC tried to go ahead and cheat its way throughout the system and just add in players here or there and find their way into the college football playoff. TCU is a good example of this. Last year, TCU went on the most improbable run that we have seen in college football history as of late. And they added in like 5 really good defensive players and 1 key offensive name. And that was it. Everyone else was homegrown. Everyone else was a part of the Fort Worth system even before Sonny Dykes got there. And Sonny Dykes utilized that to his advantage of knowing what this team chemistry was and said, let's keep things the same. Let's fix the final flaws and let's go do something special. USC just went out and spent money when it came to transfer portals, and they went out and they added in just names and said, we'll figure it out for the rest of the way. And that's not the way how college football works. I don't know what USC does this offseason, but this week is a massive reality check for Trojans fans. It's a massive reality check for Lincoln Riley. Do you think you can actually win the big one? Because the way you're coaching right now, the way that you build your program right now, the way that you set the tone in practice right now, that's not championship caliber. That's not even conference championship caliber. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.